Hello, so welcome back to part 2. It's been a total of 30 seconds since I stopped the last recording. So, yeah, we're just going to continue where we left off. We're in the rendering stage of this character design. Last video we did flats and a little bit of experimentation with the color scheme. And yeah, now we're just going to continue with rendering this. So enjoy. Feel free to paint along or just listen along if that's more your thing. But I'll sort of be I'll do some commentary as we go, but I might have to concentrate every once in a while on certain things. So if my my sentences aren't, you know, fully formulated like an adult, then I'm sorry in advance. Feel like working on paper. So for this scroll, it's gonna be real old paper, real old like parchment, and so I'll just start by indicating what the basic lighting of it is. Something like that. And some occlusion on each side. But I'll try to keep it pretty close to this local value. And then with a texture brush, I'm just going to go over it again and bam, oldness. So you get the idea of its roundness, but you just need a little bit of texture, and you can go back in and fiddle with it a little bit and bring in some colors from elsewhere. Here and pumps the saturation, so you get a little bit of hue variation in there. But overall, that's pretty set. And then the later detailing stage, I'll come in and make some conscious effort to add some other stuff, like maybe there's scriptures, or what I'll also do is maybe I'll add some old paint or something. Out a little bit, or got a little funky with the printer. I think that's a nice I'm gonna give it a, like an old, you know, those old Japanese paintings, ancient, with the sakura tree and the mountains and stuff. I might do a little thing on the side and then warp it into place. Whites, working on with really pale colors can be a little tricky at start, because you want to add a really dark shadow like you add on other stuff. But the trick is, I mean, you might have heard of like halfway to black. That's one way of doing it. The trick is just don't veer too far away from your local valley. So if you're here, you know, you don't need to go all the way down here. You can just move down just a little ways and move into, go a little more saturated. Don't ever go like this direction and go to gray. You don't want to go to black. You want to go to this black corner over here through the saturation line, so that you don't mud up your shadows. I find that's where a lot of paintings get really yucky. It's in the shadow area. Just like that. We'll add a really, so make sure that this is at 0. I want to make this edge really pop out. So I'll select it. I want to get a really sharp edge on there, a little bit of texture. So I'll come in with a lighter color. Maybe a different brush. Yeah, something like that. It's glossy almost, but keeping that edge really sharp. That's the thing when you're rendering stuff, it's all about variety, and it almost feels like it was folded just a few times. I don't want that in the middle though. No, don't like it. Oh, maybe this is a gold leaf. If it's gold leaf, then you have to go through all the all the stuff for metals. Like secondary reflections and this thing down here. We'll get back to it. A little thick. Okay, so this is like an ebony stump. Fairly dark with it. So receives no reflected light. Some ambient occlusion from the paper. And then there'll be some glossy bits. Maybe it's reflecting part of the leg or something. Kind of have to think of like what's in the surrounding. But you can add colors from all over. Like in here. First I'll add the this is going to be really dark. This here I'm going to add a little bit of and this is like the Fresnel effect on the edges of the block. Which will reflect a little more of the background as it becomes more of a grazing angle. Bring that back. This head I know is going to be really tricky. It's like, it's a complex form and it's turned down. But it's the same as everything else. You just look at the shapes. Is it turning away? Is it not turning away? Look at the materials one at a time. Have some ivory tusks or something. Then I'm also going to have some reflected light from the blue. It's metal. And I have one or two really bright spots. Kind of want it to have that hammered metal, a little puckered. There's definitely going to be some ambient occlusion from up in here. With this, I'm actually going to erase it. Just a tad, so that I follow the rule I set out earlier in this thing, which is I want to stick pretty close to the value of my local color. I don't want really dramatic lighting. Like this is too much. Why can't? Oh, it's because it doesn't exist anymore. Oh well, I'll fix that later. Yeah, I was painting on the wrong layer here, so and up here. Oh well, I'll fix that later. I'm gonna work on next. That's fun. Okay, I'll continue working on. I kind of want to work from the back stuff forward. That way I don't have to worry about painting something that's underneath. Okay, so this is all gonna be in the shadow. I don't want to go that dark with the shadow. So this is what I mean by sticking close to my values. Is I want to have a very light complexion, or she does. So I want to stick really close to that, even with my shadow colors. I need to save these selections. I hide them and then they disappear. Add a little bit of can hear, I'm just casting a large shadow and then adding some ambient occlusion. And not much more. I find the more you add to skin, unless it's like an old hag, the more you add to skin, the more it ruins it. And the more like it becomes rough and patchy and mess. Oh, actually, this is going to be in the light. See the light. Oops. I just want to smudge this shadow a bit to soften the edge. There's some pants, and this I'm gonna go pretty dark pants. I'm going dark first, and then I'll bring back. I'll do a texture pass with a lighter color on top so I can still get the crevices. And then in areas like this, I'll go really dark. What the flip? I do want to keep some indication of folds and stuff. And I'll get rid of some of this noise so that I can make them a tad more graphic. These values are really close together. Might even be hard to see. If you're working on stuff that's dark, it might be hard to see properly in a bright room. Ugh. Wrong layer again. Happens to the best of us. And the worst of us who can't learn. Okay, we're getting somewhere. Okay, so this here is like, this is gonna be sort of matte, weathered steel. So I'll really stick to browns and grays and keep their value really close together. You can see like in between these two colors, there's like barely any difference, but just enough to actually see some variation. At the same time, I'll add deep occluded shadows under here. And this helmet's going to be the same. Same material, just a tad different. It's a little bit darker. Actually, I'll just make it the same material because of the wonderful things it does. I'll also do this. There's this cool pattern in one of my references where the top of the kabuto like radiates, and it looks funky. So I'm gonna do it. Well, the first thing I'm going to do is add like the main pattern, and then I'll add a main form shadow just to give it a little bit of roundness. Like this. You could set it to overlay, pick a nice bright color and add a highlight. Why is that not doing what I want it to do? Select it. And some of these areas I'll add those radiating lines. Actually, I'll also add some ambient occlusion under this thing so that you can see it like makes it pop out just a little bit. So bring some texture back. find when you're texturing stuff like metal, it's always nice to what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, to start with a darker base and then add the texture on top with a lighter color, because it basically emulates like the bumpiness of it. Because the light will catch the bumps, it won't catch the crevices, right? So if you have a really textured brush, I don't really have any super aggressive texture brushes, so I prefer to make my decisions and not have them made for me by a brush. And a cool effect you can do is if you have your brush on color dodge or on linear light or linear dodge or any one of these, and you pick a light color, you can layer your paint strokes and it'll sort of add that effect for you. Now I want to be really subtle about this, because it's supposed to be weathered, but I feel like the peaks of those ridges still seem to be catching some light and reference. So I'll just add a couple sharp. It's just like that. Oh yeah, this. And I'll bring this way back. So that's a matte piece of metal. Adding that little bit of sharp ambient occlusion really shows those. Makes these things pop. The ones I can sort of let recede into the dark. There. So now I'm sort of respecting both my rules of having a realistic rendering, but keeping stuff pretty matte. Pretty matte. I'm going to continue with that idea for metal. It's really useful for metal because you could just grab the local color and you want to add a couple harsh highlights and bam, you're just done like dinner. And I think if you do the opposite, like use linear light or whatever on the, oh no, it doesn't really work that way. There's like one of the blending modes that does kind of the, is it linear burn? Yeah. If you want to do some really harsh like shadows and stuff, you can do it that way. But I'll stick with my what color was I using here? So I sort of want some like a pattern or something. Another trick for painting realistic stuff is there's this thing called ambient lighting. What was it I'm thinking of? I can oh, like if you know how a render engine works with like it traces the light bounces. The ambient light is sort of like it makes colors and light bounce all over the place. So try to keep, like, if you introduce a new color, introduce it in more than one place. Like I mean, all this stuff is really teal over here, but I'll bring it into the gold where it'll reflect a little bit, and I'll tone it down a little bit here and there, but just that little bit will sort of make it harmonize with all the rest. Same for here, like there's a little bit of teal in there. It's kind of gray, but it's just enough to bring it into the piece, to give it its place, make it feel at home. On this shadow area, and a little bit of that, a little bit of this, and a little bit of that. Started with the kiss. Yeah, and this is all in shadow, sort of like it's tangent to the shadow or to the line of the light. So I don't want to go too crazy with it. That ridge. I kind of prefer that this thing is like a happy accident. I want this to come forward. It's popping off the page. And now I'll add just a little bit of ambient inclusion in here. And let's see, do I have some sort of crest reference? Not really. Oh well. And I'll just sort of allude to there being some detail in here. Keep in mind the perspective and all that goodness. Don't want to forget. Yeah, just a little something like that. Don't need much. Just a little bit of love. Just enough to allude to some detail. And now I'm going to do the same over here. Start with some texture goodness. I don't know what's happening. I'm gonna stop using that. It's like on the first run through it doesn't do anything. And then after it decides itself, it's like, oh, okay. So when I'm looking around for like, what's it gonna reflect? So I'm guessing it's gonna reflect some of this stuff. So I'm just gonna pick this And that's going to be the main color of this face, because metals are 100% reflective. They are not a dielectric material. They are pure reflection. So they can have a tinted reflection, which is why you have gold and copper and aluminum and iron, and they all have their sort of different tones to them. But they don't have the same properties as dielectric materials like plastic or skin or and rust is not metal. Rust is oxidized and it becomes a dielectric material, which is why it takes on different properties. So just keep that in mind when you're doing metal. If it can be rough, and sometimes when you have a really rough metal, it can feel sort of plasticky, or not sure if I want to yeah, anyways, what I was saying, what was I saying about material properties? But yeah, you can sort of introduce some really sharp contrasts in metal, and because it'll occlude itself and reflect on itself, sort of like a reflective dark hole. And basically reflect itself out of existence. That gives a little bit of that. And okay, so I think that's good for, oh no, there's all this stuff. I don't really know what I want to do here though, in terms of I'll do a sort of rosebud or something. Something like that. Let's copy it over, warp this into place. It won't be the final. I'm copying it over at this stage because I know it'll be facing a bit of a different direction. I think I'm ready to merge all this together soon. I just need to tackle a few more spot. Sorry if I'm giving you like an epileptic seizure with moving in, zooming in and out that fast. It's not my intention. This is gonna have that same sharp reflection here. And back to my flats for clean selection. Can't forget to go back because I just want to add just a little bit of a highlight. Right along the edge. And I'll just make it round it off a little bit. Make it come forward. Okay, let's work on that underside. On the underside of the scroll. So again, form shadow first. Just gonna use a darker, more saturated version of that color. And then cast shadow, which is going to come through here and be quite sharp. And then there's going to be one, this bugger. I'm going to try a little bit of a different effect for this. So I'm going to do okay, first I'm going to darken this, and then on top I'm going to add, because I want this to be sort of like wrapped in gold leaf almost. This, and then I'm going to go over it one more time with overlay, grab a really bright color and add a little bit of a bright highlight like that, and then I'm going to add one more. This is going to be I'm going to use a blending mode here so that it only blends, doesn't blend to any darks, it only blends to the lights. Just put it like that. It gives that you can sort of move it around. Scale it. Do some other patterns and stuff, but I'll add that same highlight. So you can see the highlight here. It continues on that same line, and so with that my lighting proves to be consistent, more or less. So over here, they're going to be shorter because the paper is, the rolls are smaller, so the highlight's going to be smaller. It won't be as wide. I have too many different types of gold in this. That I'm gonna keep, and that this I don't really like. I don't like what I did with the belt. I'll fix that. Later. So I want this repetitive shape on the armor. It's like repetitive geometric shape, sort of half moon, so that it creates a rhythm. And then like you see here, almost like Greek pottery or something. So I want to fit the profile. Oh wait, that's way off. I'm trying to fit these shapes on the curved face. Can be a little tricky. Okay, actually I'm going to this, nah, I'm just gonna do it the old. So I want the bottom of these this like skirt to be gold, but then want it to be the exact same gold as something else so that I don't have like 15 different types of gold. I'm just gonna make a little time making a decent selection. And this part here. Like that one. Yeah, just these ones are fine. What am I doing? I want all of this. There. Okay, so it's on its own layer. Now I can fiddle around with their values and stuff, but I'm just gonna make this a little wonky-dory. Gold has, oh wait, and I'm gonna desaturate it. That's, the value is going to be a little bit, I mean it's going to be lighter and darker because the values are going to be way compressed. Something like that. Oh, here shift it. So it's a start. And I can do this and color pick from these. I don't want it to go this dark. So I'll take some of this stuff. It's going to be this type of gold. There's some cuts in it. Ah, it's a little more interesting. So now I'm gonna lay in a couple things on overlay, just to add some variation in here. And you'll see I'll drop the opacity really, really low on the layer so that it doesn't change. It won't really change much. It'll just add a little bit of, I don't know, a little something something. It'll add some color in certain areas and some inclusion in other areas. Just overall like a variation pass. This is where it sort of helps to have everything on the same layer, because it can affect everything and it kind of harmonizes everything. So yeah, that's really, really strong, but I'll just drop it. Deep down low. That's kind of cool actually. I like aqua. Yeah, I like cooler colors. Kind of gives the translucent feel. Let's do some metals. So I want these are also going to be this sort of metal here. It's like rough. Form shadow, cast shadow. And then with the texture brush, just a little bit of highlight. I want it to be pretty matte. And it's just enough. It's enough information to keep you interested. And for this one, there's going to be like patterns and stuff on it. But again, it's like an old so pick up some highlights, but very few. include the back of it. This bright part in the back. Okay, so got that one, and now there's this one. Let me select these. Oh, stop selecting this. Okay. And this one, I think I'll go even more vague. Pretty secondary. And if you have like two things in an image that are really similar, you can sort of detail one and your brain will automatically resolve the other. It's a way of being lazy, essentially. And blame your lack of perseverance and persistence for detail making on the viewer. It's like a role reversal. Painting on the wrong layer again. Yay! I guess it trains you not to look back, not to double guess yourself. Don't stop. Don't do that. I want a little bit of a bright highlight on this one right here. That feels like there's something interesting going on. A little something on the end. A good exercise for that quick sort of detailing, because I'm only showing the highlight. It's really impressionistic. It's like it tricks your brain into thinking that there's a lot of like this whole pattern going on. But a good way to learn or to practice that is just to paint the light on whatever, like if you're doing a study of something, just start like with a black canvas or a really dark canvas and just paint what's in the light. And you can sort of train your brain to only to really concentrate on what's in the light rather than what's in the dark. And then you can kind of abuse that power to confuse people on finding ways to, yeah, paint stuff without actually painting it. You're just painting like half of it. I think like the best, you see traditional painters, like some of the best are the people who can do the most with the least, like the most, give the most detail with the least amount of brush strokes. I think it looks effortless almost, and like the best impressionist could, you know, put three brush strokes and paint a face. Or make you believe that there's a face there. So I really think it's just a big magic trick. A big illusion. It's kind of an abstract philosophy. Like there's an argument that realism is more abstract than abstract painting, which I think there is some value to that, because when you see like abstract, or what you think, what first comes to mind when you think of like contemporary art, when you see like geometric shapes and stuff on a big ass canvas that's being sold for millions of dollars. It's very literal, like what you see is what you get. Now you see a cube, and that's all it is. It might have some deeper meaning or something to someone, but it is just a cube. Where when you're painting something and you're trying to make it look like realistic, it's all illusion. Like you're using shapes like squares and stuff, and shadow shapes and light shapes to create the illusion that there's something real, like something tangible. And I think it's really cool. Oh, how do these wraps work? It's like a braid almost, but every time you go around, it twists, so there's like volume to it. This is the part I was looking forward to the most, not because it's complicated. Okay, I think I'll need to draw it first. So there's that, and then it goes around. So that, and then it goes around. You can't just have like 4. Oh bother. Okay, so this there, and then this wraps over. I don't want to draw everything, like all the details, but I just want to get in like enough that you get what's going on. And right now I know that's not happening. I just need to get some of these diamond shapes in. This, and I'll take this and duplicate it. Like this. And how does that work? Okay, so that part works. This part is not. Needs to be there. This part needs to be. Okay. And now to clean all this up. I think those diamond shapes really help sell the effect. It also really helps with the placement of these straps and stuff. So I think that's enough. And it could go more. I always do more, but I'm going to take all of this. I'm going to cheat. Control J. Oh no, wait. Oh, am I going to have to merge? Oh, I don't want to merge everything down. Actually, that is better. I'm just going to do that. Can I? Horizontal. I can. So I'm just going to do this and sort of warp it. Into place like a real cheater. I just want to get the placement of these the triangles or those things right. And I'll set this to multiply. So other can, and then maybe bring it down. Yeah, like that. Now I can fix all of this crap. It feels like a dirty pommel. As you can see, I'm adding highlights, but I'm not adding them everywhere because I want it to look like there's some variation in the thickness of the grip. From far, it just looks pretty homogeneous, but okay, so that's for swords. I'm like almost done these with all the different parts of this, and then I'll move to I'll merge everything together and work on edges, so soft and hard edges around the whole thing wherever things blend, and it'll sort of homogenize the illustration. So there's still a couple things like in the head and in the legs, but most of this torso area is pretty done, sort of. I mean, yeah, there's still a lot to go, but stuff matters a little bit less, so you just need to indicate it, move on. Straps a little bit. So the same as the grip, the most important part is just to indicate overlaps and stuff. You don't have to draw the line all the way through, as it looks like he's giving it a lot of thickness. But and some, and then there's a knot back here. So here I'm gonna add like a fold. And the material bunches up near the that knot before turning the corner. So I want to bring some attention to that. At the same time, I'll use this highlight color. Bring everything forward. Don't want to go too off the rails with my value scheme, so I'll soften that a little bit. This is really real messy. thing. Also, I just want to indicate that there's some sort of flurfy stuff going on here. Okay. Some pattern, maybe it's like a serpent or same thing over here, same but different. Use a little bit of the background color. Looks a little plastic, but it's okay. This is part of so I'm going to tone this down. I'm actually going to bring that over here just as reference. So I can color pick from it. A little bit of roughness. This gold's got some attitude. If I want to come add some light. Ooh, that's way too orange. I feel like I want to have it melt into a point. Like it starts softer and then really, I guess, to accentuate that, this point right here. Might actually change the metal up on that elbow pad so that it fits more, because I like this metal here. So might. for the sake of time, I'm gonna cheat and bring that bit over here. Because why not? It's the same thing. We'll invert the selection just to clean up this bit here. And invert it again. So I'm going to keep this as dark. I just wanted that heel part. And the back side of this is going to be that. That's a little. It's a little suspect. So I'll just vary it up a little more. Also need to add more specular, or a bit more of a brighter just like like that. And then this area here is going to be more almost like a satin. So for this, I'm going to use this brush because it's got some stringiness to it. But you get that a little bit of that directional effect and do that. It's also going to have some for now. And I'll come back in with a like a color dodge or something to give it that harsh, bright highlight where it needs it. It won't be everywhere. So here, let's go linear dodge, see what that does. Okay, that's kind of nice. I wanted it to be a little more saturated though. So. And I'll tone this back in a second. I want to accentuate these like seams, I guess. Now, I erase. Everything is just too high contrast. also make it darker. Yeah, like that. And like that. It's really in the shadow now. Shadow zone. I'll do these pads. Oops. So these are going to be metal, but the strings under are going to be like fabric. These are in the shadow, so occlude them a bit. Nice soft warm shadow in there. Oh yeah, and I see a little something. There's a little highlight right on the edge. It's I think the sharpness is just it's catching some light. Subtle, subtle. Maybe it's got a little bit of a rounded edge. I love adding borders to stuff. It just makes them feel more complete. It's like a dot at the end of a sentence. Okay, now these, make the tolerance a little lower so that I just get that. For just making weird sounds, if that's what you're hearing. Sounds like a sounds like something's trying to squeeze itself through a pipe. So I'm just pressing Control H to hide the selection, but the selection's still there, in case you're wondering. Some I'm not going to do too much to these straps. Okay, how long are we running for? Oh, an hour and 45 minutes, okay. It's not crazy. But we were close to 3 hours on the last video, so just want to make sure that not keeping everybody too long. Although I don't really care, that the whole point of these videos is to show you the whole process, however long it takes to do one of these pieces. I mean, it is just the reality of things, and I've been doing this for quite a while now. I've done a lot of this stuff, so anybody who's just starting out, obviously it'll take way longer. Like way longer. So you eventually, once you learn the process, you just spend years becoming more comfortable with it. Perspective's off. Oh, I'm so excited to just merge this all into one and finish. Because stuff like this, like these sorts of areas, I just want to paint over everything. Merge it all together. So for this is like a, for the black part, so they have like this, it's almost like painted wood, or it's like partially laminated or something. It's got a really nice, interesting finish to it. But it's like sort of glossy, not too textury. I'm just going to use this brush here. Which doesn't have a lot of texture, it just has a little bit of like, almost like bristle hairs. And I'm just going to focus on bringing out that highlight. Right down the middle, but it's quite matte, so I don't want to like overdo it. It's also got a little bit of weathering and stuff around the edge. Just do that with a little bit of a lighter color. It's kind of like dust building up. And then down here, it's pretty dark. Like where it turns in on itself and occludes itself. That. Oh dear, what did I do? Okay, so I still have that selection. I'm also going to give this a little bit of a border, but it's not so plain looking. Delineates that shape nicely and makes it pop out. Some of these highlights forward. It's like a gold brim. It reflects some of this light under here. That'll be more occluded. Just want to have some different colors, even in those small spots, so that it doesn't feel so bland and boring. Work in this junction a little bit. Anywhere places meet, where two materials meet side by side, it's always really important to resolve those areas. Like to work on the relationship between those two materials. Like that's why I always merge it and then rework it on one layer afterwards to rework the edges and stuff, because those junctions are so important. So this is the darkest color I'll use in the, so I'm 13% is, yeah, it's like 90% of the way to black. So I'm not using the last 10%. And because the whole illustration is like, there's a lot of control of the value and like the tonal range, using this sort of darker color, it does feel pretty punchy, and it's almost like a black. I just want to occlude that, make it really feel like it's turning away. And here, it's going to be a shadow. A soft shadow of this shape. Here I'm gonna try to accentuate those ridges as they go around. Okay, we have most of this done. I just left like the best bits for last. Actually, oh, there's still this. Still this, still that. But yeah, I'm leaving the really refining the portrait and the hair, like this whole area, for last, because it'll be the most time. I think it'll be the most time consuming out of any individual part. Like, that'll be longer than the shoulder pads or the elbow pads. This is sort of a gourd. I'll really use a sketch here to help me out with these. Just looking for interesting secondary, tertiary shapes. It's not so small. Like you're gonna see it, but you're not gonna pay so much attention to it. Well, now that I pointed it out, you might, but normally you wouldn't. Any run-of-the-mill person who's just dropping by to take a look. And then sort of cork. I don't know if I want a cork or maybe I want like a really bright really fancy schmancy lid. A gold dye. Oh, this is a expensive, prestigious gourd. I don't know what this piece is. It's just a piece that was sticking out. I don't even think it's sticking out in the reference. I just drew it because it's fancy. Okay. And here I'll link these two pieces up just to make that one continuous strap, just like that. Okay, I'm also gonna continue. I'm gonna continue working on this thing a little bit. I don't really like how what it's doing. It's too well, for one, the value range is too crazy. It's not crazy, it's just wrong for what I want, which is to keep the values really in check. So what I'm going to do is take something that like this. So I kind of want to lighten, I don't want any of these darks, so that it contrasts the armor well. I'm going to take this and throw it all around, especially on the dark spots, and I'm going to set it to lighten, and then maybe lower the opacity a little bit so that kind of brings all those values up. Actually, I might just put it on screen. Think ahead, think ahead. I mean, like, it's fine. We all need to experiment at first with layer styles and stuff. But it's good to know, to have a plan in advance of what you're doing and not just go all willy-nilly about doing something. Because, like, so if I put it to lighten, you can see what it does. It kind of, like, flattens everything, which is okay. If I like set it down to that, it kind of does what I want. But if I set it to screen, it brightens everything uniformly, which is more, I think, in tune with what I want. You know, having a more of like a ropey feel to it. And on top of that, I can start refining some of these swirly whirlies that I see in this textile reference. They're kind of just like flowers and stuff. So I'm not going to go too overboard. I just want to indicate, especially in the light, especially where they catch the light in a very intense, dramatic way. Thank you. It's kind of like if you're drawing chains or jewelry, you want everything to be pretty neutral until you hit that diamond that really shines. Because if you make everything else shiny, it just becomes a mess of noise. They're just subtle indications of this stuff, and this is where I kind of wasn't really paying attention. I guess I don't know what was going on earlier. I just wasn't doing it right, you know. I guess after what's it been now, like 3, 4. So I've been working on this for 5 hours. After 5 hours, you kind of get in the groove. You know, you just start to get in the groove after a full days of work. I do find that though, like when I am at work, it takes me about 5 hours of drawing to like really like feel it. You stop thinking about the brushstroke so much. You just naturally do it. You're warmed up, and if you stop, it breaks the flow. I am gonna add some intense shadows, but they're gonna be really small, and just to show where because they're round shapes, just to like occlude them in a couple little areas. So like right here under this, and it feeds into there. Under here, and in this corner right there. And this is where you can have fun with like the showing the shape of things, or if there's like a surface texture or something, because that's right where the light meets the shadow. If you vary that edge, you can show a lot of information. I want a little bit of a separation. Something like that. So it just adds a lot of occlusion. It's a little more how I want it. But I'll still go in and fix stuff up later, because it's not perfect yet. I think a piece is done when you really find yourself being like, what can I do with this? What else can I do? If you're asking yourself that and you're standing there for half an hour and you're like, I really don't know what else I can do with this, then take a day off and come back to it and sit down and ask yourself that again for another half hour. And after you do that a couple times, you know, you're done with the piece. But be sure that after 6 months, you're going to come back to that piece and you're going to be like, oh man, I could have done so much more. And that's just the reality of improving with your craft, is that you look back at what you did 6 months ago or a year ago, even sometimes like a week ago, or your last piece, and especially in the beginning, you might look at the last piece you did and be like, wow, that's a whack piece right there. I don't know what I was thinking. But once you figure out your process and stuff, you become a little more consistent. And you can like depend on yourself to at least achieve some standard that you set. Okay, also something I'm going to do is I'm going to colorize my line art. Because right now, this is what the lines look like. And this is kind of like the feel that I want. Like it's kind of like comic-y, retro. I don't know, it feels good. Like the stylized drawing, like the stylized proportions, and then the like really tight or the realistic rendering of materials, but that like clean edge around it, I think I like. But I don't like the black, like so that's why I spent so much time on the drawing and stuff, is because I wanted to keep it in the final. To a certain extent, I'll paint some of it out and clean it up some more. But yeah, so I think I'm gonna try a couple colors, but let's start with like red. Oh, not that way. So what I'm doing is I'm setting a clipping mask to the drawing. And now I'm gonna set the drawing style to multiply so that I still get like, it's still darker. It's just multiplying a color on top. So now if I change this color to something lighter, you can see it kind of like disappears. Or if I saturate it, you can see the effect it does. Ooh, purple. Purple's cool. Yeah, I like how it's creating like pink around the gold and blue on the teal. I dig. So I'm gonna drop that a little lower to something like kind of like that. I'll keep that in. And this also had some purples and pinks on the skin, which is cool in the final. I dig, that's cool. Okay, let's do the, I think that's all for the lower body. I'll do ropes and stuff, like the really tiny stuff in the final stage. And now let's get to the hair and jewelry and this top part. Some ropes, and this I'll do in one go. And this is gonna be, I thought it was gonna be like burgundy. I'll make this burgundy. Yeah, drop that a little bit. This is also going to be a sort of it's kind of like leather, so it'll have a crisper highlight, but it'll also be a little weathered. So I'll add some more orange, some dusty brown colors, and a sort of bounce. If you want to weather leather, there's just makes me think of sweater weather. If you want to weather leather, you can add a sort of lighter color. This is what I learned from one of my art directors. But adding a lighter color around the edges of it, it kind of makes it feel like the varnish that they tint, that they tone the leather with, is like stripping off and adding little cracks and stuff in it. Oh man, you know, 5 hours of talking also takes a toll on your voice. But yeah, so I'm just adding those little details in the leather, and then I'll include this part where it lifts up like that. And I'll also put some of this stuff in here. Now this is going to pick up some light because it's right, I mean, this is going to be really occluded, but right where the crease is, it is going to pick up. I want to show it picking up some light. Some tasteful creasing. Something like that. Here, this is mostly going to be occluded, so I won't spend too much time on that. And this is going to pick up some light on top. I think when you're, this is a process that I've started using just a little while ago, like this really methodical way of rendering stuff, and it's really worked well for me so far, because it separates, you know, like your color scheme that you figure out with your flats is all decided, and all you really need to focus on is what the local lighting and material is, like for each individual part. And as long as you stay really close to the local value that you chose for that color, then it just works. There's no if, buts, and ends. You just take what surrounds it into context and do what you gotta do and paint it up. This is going to be a little bit more shadow. Also, I know a lot of people say don't use soft brushes, but use soft brushes if you need to use soft brushes. There's no reason not to. It's just another tool. Like, it's good is don't lose all your hard edges, because hard edges are really important too to show structure and stuff. But if you need a gradient and you need a soft gradient, go ahead and do it. I spent so many years, at least like the last 5 years probably, painstakingly paint gradients with like the square brush. And you do learn brush control and some valuable stuff, but like doing it this way is just so much faster and more useful. So as long as you get the right colors in the right place, because that's the only thing you're really trying to do, is like get the right colors in the right place. Here I'm subtly showing some bounce light on the arm. That's the hands. I like the texture of this style of painting, where you have a variety of like soft things and really textured things. It kind of feels like eating ice cream, but like rocky trail ice cream with like nuts and score bits and chocolate chips, and just, you know, there's a lot of flavors of texture. So for this, I'm also going to include, oops, like this part. I'm going to do the hair now. And for hair, it's all the same. You find your light source, don't veer too far away from it. Use some of this brown. Color. I just want to make sure that like right here I get the right sheen. So I'll use a little bit of gray. So make that up a little bit. I want to feel that the tension is pulling back on the hair. Here, most of this hair is facing downward, so I won't actually, I should do this in the later when I just render the rest of this out, but this hair is gonna be pretty matte too. Matte. And then I'm gonna go find that my darkest color. Where are you? It's gonna be occluded area in the back here. If you want to make something look more shiny too, you can add a little bit of dark right beside it. That. And it just tightens up the kind of like specularity of it, I guess. I don't really know how to say it, but like just makes it a little more sharp. It's like darkening a core shadow for a shape. It makes it feel more voluminous. You can see I'm using a lot of really graphic shapes in the hair. This, you know, is a strong triangle. And, oh yeah, this needs to be I always forget what this part of the hair is. It's the other. I should actually figure out how to show that more. like that. Yeah, there's supposed to be like two half circles, ponytail thing going on. Actually, for this hair, I'm actually gonna do some line art, sort of. Oh, actually, I should have done that on the other layer. Oh well. Oh well. And then, okay. These puppies. Yeah, I want these to be like a kind of a rough metal, so I don't have my selection so that it's more visible, but let's do color dodge so that we get some interesting colors and stuff going on. You know, get some pinks and some all sorts of different colors reflecting off of everything. Get a little bright highlight. Okay, that's enough. Knock back the saturation of that a little bit. And for this one, I really want it to pop out. So I'll darken one edge. This one, sharpen it, and sharpen that one. Yeah, if you ever want to make something stick out, just heighten the contrast. Something like that. And then here, for this I'm going to have some reflected light. Skin. I still want to keep it darker overall. Actually, this one here doesn't really make sense because it's not facing the light. But this one could, yeah, back here. I want at least one that sort of like faces the light and really pops. That seems to be working there. Maybe I'll light. Yeah. Get that really blown out. Like the metal is catching the light and reflecting it right into your sensitive eyeballs. So this is the stuff. This is the kind of stuff that you want to do with jewelry as well. Just find the one lucky winner piece of jewelry that catches the light. These ones back here just they're just chilling. That high contrast brings some focus back to the head, which is good, and then there's just a couple lighter bandages or something around here. I don't really have a plan for this stuff, but do one last pass for these hands. We are almost done with this stage of the coloring. Hand. I just want to have some really subtle shadows because it's mostly going to be highlight. Ghost skin. Get some pinks. For these, these are going to be quite glossy. So if you want to make things glossy, just gotta darken them a little bit, and then you give them reflections like this. As it reflects what's around them, which I will include the hair as well. And then you add one really bright specular highlight. It's like that. Like that. Like little cherries in the hair. Man, once you zoom out, it's like a whole different drawing. Okay. Perps. Okay, let's what to do now? It's so exciting. So many different things and opportunities. Okay, so I'm gonna drop that down, do a little something like that. What does it do when so I kind of like the rougher edge, but what does that look like over white? But that's so cute. Yeah, it does happens if I do that? Okay. It is done. It is officially merged. So now is the time to do a final cleanup run of this doll. So I'm going to keep this on, what are we at? 229. Let's see if we can finish this in under 3. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go around, clean up some of these edges around here. I'm not going to clean them up like too much because I still want some sketchiness around it. I just like that. You know, it's a vibe. I hear that way too often now. And I'll go back in with this. So this is like, actually both of these. These are like my drawing brushes. So they're kind of like pencils. I really like this one because it's got that tilt angle to it. This is another one. But I'm going to go back with these and sort of melt the line art and the, like this, into one. So I'm just going to go over and basically feather all the line art, and it'll just soften, it'll turn everything into mushy goodness. Kind of blurs the line, you know. And this is really I don't know how to say it, but like this is a very me thing to do, to like go in and fix every pixel. This part, and at the same time I'll come in and clean up some of these shapes that I don't like as much. But it's the feet, so not too important. I mean, it is important, it's just not the most important. I don't want to layer lock it. Some of these shapes, you know, where it wraps around the ankle. You can see like what the line art's doing now with the ambient occlusion. It's just kind of like helping with that. It's pulling its weight. Some of these lines I want to soften. And I'll just go right over them with one color or the other. These are like really small micro changes. does make a big difference in the end. You know, things like adding little straps and buttons and ties and I think the purple adds a really nice kind of like sketchy under drawing feel to it. Oh, I didn't really do this, eh? I should probably do that. Some matte ribbon, and you can have a little bit of sheen. Got a little tiny bit of thickness. Show that overlap. So with this brush, I can kind of like redo line art and clean up the drawing at the same time, or clean up the illustration. It's like a good multi-purpose. Just need some variation. Need some grit. I won't add the all this stuff though. It's too much. Too much, and it won't add much. So this is what I mean by like you want to keep some hard edges in areas like this, or like around the head, or wherever the form, like if there's a quick change in form, you want to keep those hard edges just to keep some structure. And a bit of a drop shadow here. Oh wait, like another reason I colorize my line art was that wherever I color pick, it still has some saturation. Where if I had like just black line art, it would just gray everything a little bit. And if I did this pass over again, it would start to mud up certain areas. Adding just a little bit of SSS. I mean, this will probably take another hour or two. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter because it's gonna be awesome. It's all that counts. And it's gonna be fun. Like, time flies when I'm working on this. I don't feel like I've been working on it for 5 hours. I feel like I've been working on it for 5 minutes, honestly. Yeah. And keep a gradient. Eyebrow. This is where I've been doing a lot of stylized stuff at work lately, and I think it's helped me a lot, like for shapes and with regards to different things. So I'm gonna keep that there, and for the eyebrow, a little highlight. Get this real flashy. This brings attention to the eye. And this, work on the bite. More saturated right towards the center. And again, small highlight. This I want to keep a little sketchy. I don't want to overwork this piece. That's like my only concern. Because I want it to feel a little bit yeah, a little sketchy, you know, a little rough around the edges, but like in a really like clean way. I don't know how to I want it to feel like soap. It kind of does have that feeling, I think. And this with the frame is this. I like this little thing going on here. I'll sharpen it a little bit, like this. So really at this point it's just about adding what you don't like and bringing forward what you do like in the piece. You just want to show what you think is really cool. I like crisp edges and this I do not like here. This is, I would have accepted this few years ago, for sure, but not today. Today is a new day. At the same time, I don't want to rush this last stage because it is kind of the part you can go on and on and on for weeks about. It's just refining and refining and refining, but the point of this is kind of a proof of concept for myself, like that I can do this and record it and talk over it, and it'll be nice to put this out there and see what people think about having this sort of like live video and commentary. I know it's something that I find it something that YouTube lacks, is like the good live stuff. I do like listen to I think like Adam Duff has an awesome channel for that sort of stuff, like slower pace. You can actually see what he's working on, and he talks about really interesting things. But like the full process stuff of people who are like in the industry and semi-proficient at what they do, I think is something that can be explored. And I also I really enjoy listening to podcasts or just other artists talking about stuff and working at the same time. So I figured maybe someone would enjoy this. At the same time, I'm not looking to grow a huge YouTube channel. Like I understand this isn't everybody's cup of tea. But like whole live process, I'm kind of not trying to aim for like a get good real fast sort of audience. But I think it could definitely help some people getting into digital art and wondering what it's like to work in the industry, or what it's like to try to master a craft, or whatever the case may be. This is what I mean by like way earlier in the first video I mentioned that I'd only add this sort of detail at the very end because it gets in the way of rendering everything else. But these little details like this it's a nice way to fake that you've put a lot of detail everywhere. lifting off. Lift off. Now, one thing I do really want to make sure of is that this line right here is super clean and sharp. That the highlights that are behind it really stand out. Because I want to bring the armor forward and push the belly a little more like into space, not into space, not into outer space, but like, you know, set it in the center. Of the armor. Like I said earlier, if you want to bring something forward, just pop the contrast. So I just want to bring this one edge really forward, so I'm gonna bring that highlight out, make it contrast against the dark. Forward in this space. Take a step back, take a look. So now a little something I'm gonna do is do a little selective color pass, because I do want to bring out some of these colors. But it's like a nice way of fiddling around and seeing what you can do with the, oh, that's kind of cool actually. The like more yellow. I don't want it to be too monochromatic though. I like that. I like taking the, because with the cyans it kind of kills it. But with the oranges, like the opposites of cyan, kind of pops it out like that. See, in the cyans, so this is kind of what it does. It goes through the image, and it goes through red, yellows, greens, cyans, blues, magenta, whatever. And then you can pick how much of each color, because like in RGB, right, stands for red, green, blue. And yeah, so those are like percentages of those colors will be in every single color you make in Photoshop, as well as like a sort of K value for the black, like how black it is or how close to white and how saturated it is. Like it's an algorithm, right? So when you go into this, your colors, it separates them out into almost like channels. And if you go into the blues, you can, like, there's not a lot of blue in here. There's a little bit here, but you can, you know, take the magentas out. Or wait, let's pick a color. So that, like yellows, right? If I want to put more cyans out, it makes it more green. Or take some out, it makes it more orange. And if I want to add magenta, take it away. So the opposite of magenta is green or pink. And then with yellow, it's like adding more purple. So you can kind of go through and color correct your image that way. I kind of like bringing some of the oranges out. Yeah, so let's just try that. So you can see it brings a little bit of saturation to some areas. Right. It makes it feel like there's more subsurface scattering in the skin with the oranges. And it kind of makes it feel like there's light on this stuff. So I'm gonna keep that. Snap it down. And then I'll do one more little pass for like soft light almost. Just like a little bit of like bloom on certain areas. And for that, I'll use some like orange peachy color. And the soft light is really subtle, right? It's nothing crazy, but you know, when you add it a little bit everywhere. So I'm just looking for areas with white, like that. This where the gold is reflecting, and this is emanating, emulating bloom. Just kind of light scattering through a darker area, but too much there. Actually, I did say I wanted to change this color. Just like a tad. I think I wanted to make it a little lighter. Something like this sort of thing. So I'm gonna desaturate it. Actually, I think that just does it. That does it. Not really hands in this illustration. I mean, they're just concealed away in the dark. So I'm not going to clean all this up. I kind of like that. I kind of like the sketchy feeling. It's so sketch. This is like, once you've passed the last stage, it's like when you start to have all the fun, like the real fun, where you're like, oh, like you can decide where to put eye candy and like just fun little things. This thing. Like this. I find this is fun. It's like a pore texture. And I'll put it on like this and then erase 99% of it away. But I just want to have this like small little sheen, like you see with I forgot my train of thought. Models on magazines and stuff. It's like everything's super shiny and shit. That's the thing with like having a really clean base allows you to do these really subtle changes and they're still noticeable. Because if you don't have a clean base, like if you were to have a bunch of texture all over, like if I were to try to do that on this part or on the paper or anywhere on the armor, it would barely register. I mean, it barely registers on the leg, but it would completely disappear on any other surface because the leg is like a really smooth surface. Some of this. This strap, an independent strap. It's not part of the pants. It's a strong, independent strap. Don't need no man type of strap. that's so bright. Holy schmoly. My flow's up. So here, wait, here, I'll do a quick tutorial for, quick hidden tutorial, 3 hours into this video about reflective surfaces, because I think it's something a lot of people get wrong. So having a reflective surface isn't just about having like a huge contrast, and it's not just like, you know, you're putting like a really bright thing like this, right? Because this as a base is just a flat matte thing, lit very closely by a bright light. To have something reflective, it actually needs to reflect something. So for instance, if this ball, like in a gray environment, a reflective ball would just look like a chrome ball. Like if it was just in a gray room that was perfectly lit everywhere, it would just sort of look like this. Like that's what a chrome ball would look like. It would just have, it would be nothing essentially. But let's say if it's reflecting an environment, then you'd see first you'd see the horizon. You'd see the horizon that kind of cuts across it, and that horizon is going to go around the diameter of the sphere, because if the horizon is like in the middle, right, it's separating the sky and the ground, then it needs to be cutting across the diameter, because it needs to be pointing out, right, in every direction. Like this. It's always going to the horizon. So, and then you're gonna have whatever's in the sky, it's gonna be above that line. So if you have a beautiful sky, it's gonna be up here like this. And if you have a sun in the sky, you put the sun in the sky, and it's gonna be real bright sun. You can almost draw a whole landscape in a sphere. And it's a really good way to practice drawing chrome. And then if you have grass, then the grass is going to be on the ground, like this. And then you can sort of think like, okay, well then on the ground, maybe the grass is like illuminated. You know, maybe there's some patchy areas, and you're kind of wrapping the environment around the sphere. You know, maybe there's these sorts of you know, patches of grass that are illuminated by the sun. And the closer it gets to the center of the sphere, the more of a flat image it's going to look like, because it's like you're looking into a mirror. And then the more it goes around the sphere, the more distorted and wonky it gets, and it'll distort with the edge of the sphere, like this. Let's add one more reference to the sky. But what happens is that around the edge, it starts to reflect what's directly behind it, right? Okay, so this is a chrome ball, a little bit rough in a field. Now, if I were to place this on her like this chrome sphere would start to reflect only around the edges, like a would reflect what's right beside it or right close behind it, because you're looking at a mirror essentially at a grazing angle. So what you can do is you can select from right around it, which is what I did for, this cherry thing, and what I'm thinking about when doing any of these reflective surfaces. And you can just graze the edge with that color. Here it's going to be black. So I'm just, selecting right outside. Here's going to be some gold. Here's going to be some teal, some more gold here. Maybe I'll reflect the really bright highlight right there. Some teal over here. Maybe there's just some white and some gold over here, and some white over here. And you can see it just melts. It just melts into that context. It's like magic. Now, so that's a chrome sphere. Now, if you take this whole thing and tint it, so this would have no color. This is like a metal with no color. If you were to tint it, let's say you tinted gold, like yellow, then this whole thing becomes gold. And it's like, shabam, look at that, it's a gold sphere. And you get all the color variation that you had, like the teal just becomes more yellow, and the white just becomes more yellow, the gold, or the sky and the grass and all the environment around it, it just becomes more gold. There's no it doesn't disappear or anything, And if you want to make it a purple metal sphere, like you get in those crazy yo-yos or whatever type of really reflective sphere you want it to be, it can be that. It can be whatever your heart desires. And if you want it to be more rough, or so if that's a sphere and tinting the sphere makes it like a tinted reflection, then adding another color on top, adding like a diffuse color or like an albedo, there's a whole bunch of different words for it, but you're essentially turning it into a dielectric material. It's not purely reflection anymore, so it's not metal, so it would be like a really glossy plastic or whatever. You can just add a color on top, and you can add it via hard light, or add it with different blending modes. But adding a color, or even if you were to just make a sphere with a color. Fudo. Oh, nice. Let's say it's a pink sphere. Let's make a bright pink ball. Like this, right? Add a little bit of the same lighting that we had for the other one. Let's say this is just a normal pink sphere, right? If you just lower the opacity of that reflection, or change the way that it blends, you can get different dielectric materials. So this would be a sort of semi-gloss plastic, or a glossy pink paint with a clear coat on it. This is like a balloon. And if you were to like reverse it, like flip it upside down so that it's like it's refracting everything, then it becomes like glass, because it's going through the material. If this were to be something like that, and you basically have like a glass shader. Now, a really good way to learn this stuff is to go to 3D art channels like Blend. I mean, I learned most of this stuff from Blender Guru, because he goes through material properties in a really user-friendly way to build shaders in Blender. But the properties of the materials are super useful to learn when you're for rendering this kind of stuff, if you're rendering more realistic stuff. So all that to say, thank you for watching. This was part 2 of of me rendering this character, and I might continue and clean up a couple little things here and there, but nothing too interesting. It'll just be me fiddling with this drawing for another, I don't know, maybe another week or so. And yeah, thanks for dropping by. I hope this was helpful, and looking forward to making other videos like this. So thanks a lot, and see you later.